This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Alana Bemmann of Cosmopolitan Academy. Alana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to this conversation. Let's start right off at the top. What is Cosmopolitan Academy? What do you do?
So Cosmopolitan Academy is a academy in the beauty industry. So we teach anything from permanent makeup to paramedical tattooing and then lashes. And we started that in 2013. And during that time, we kind of noticed that a lot of our students were missing out on the business side. So we've actually just added a sister company to Cosmopolitan Academy, which is the Diamond Society. So where we're helping women to scale their businesses to 6-7 figures. Wow.
6-7 figures. Damn. Okay. So a couple questions that come off the top right away. Is this, so Academy, can the consumer walk in here? Or sorry, what's the best way to ask this? This is mainly a training ground.
Yes, so it is certification courses. We are accredited. So with their certification, they can get insurance for their businesses if they're looking to get into entrepreneurship as their own. And then the certificate is also credible to get jobs if they're looking to work for somebody. So they can take two totally different avenues with this.
Okay. And I'm assuming it's a brick and mortar location, or is it online?
So we have brick and mortar. So we do classes across Canada and the US. And then we also offer online with hybrids. So with an actual instructor for those who are a little bit seasoned in the industry, but still need that one-on-one with the instructor, but don't necessarily need to be in class. So they can go to the hybrid learning. And then we also offer online. So we have all three tiers, depending on where these women are in their journey, how seasoned or how brand new they are.
Okay. So is this a franchise model?
No.
Okay. So you're located in Simcoe County?
Our head office is located here in Simcoe County. Yes.
Okay. And are you the owner of Cosmopolitan Academy?
Yes, I am the founder.
Wow. So you started this in 2013 and you're all across North America.
Yes.
Damn. Okay, so head offices here and there are other locations?
So we work out of conference rooms when we're traveling.
Okay. So I'm always interested in the story. It's whenever we're talking to somebody, they're at this stage in the game, and many times entrepreneurs that come on here are already successful, right? And the story part of it is so fascinating. Best Version Media, our company, I don't own it. We own a piece of it, is also across North America. It's a very, very large company. And, that story is interesting, different from you as you own the whole thing, whereas we're just Simcoe County and Muskoka, my team and I. But what I'm interested about the business model, we'll get into that in a moment, because I think that'd be fascinating for people to hear, as I think what you have is not common. But what brought you to this industry? It's really a two-pronged question. Yeah. What made you decide to get into this field in general? And then what made you decide to be like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur in this field? Because those are two vastly different things. I could love the gym and just want to do that with my life. It's very different for me to say I love the gym and I'm going to open a gym. Two very different hats. And I use that because I'm a gym guy and I did own a couple of gyms. But entrepreneur is it's a tough lifestyle, especially to tackle a continent like you decided.
Yeah.
Well, let's dig into that
global. So we're just getting started.
Go global. Okay.
I would like to be global. So it's interesting. So I actually did not come from entrepreneurship. I grew up in poverty. So my mom was a single mom that came out of an abusive relationship. She took me and my brother, and that's all she had to her name. And so she worked very, very, very hard. Quite inspirational to see a woman work as hard as she did just to put food on her table. So I think that's where my drive came from, was my mom, for sure.
Okay.
And then by the age of 16, I actually moved out. So my mom got remarried and ended up in the same relationship that she started when I was younger. So she was in another abusive relationship. And I remember at 13 saying, you know what, as soon as I'm legally allowed to leave this house, I'm going to be gone. And so at 16, I moved out. And that's when I started. I stayed in school. She instilled all the morals and the ethics and the hard work. So I stayed in school, but I was working after school to pay my rent and to keep going. So I'd ride my little bike and go to my job after work, pay my bills, and then I went on to post-secondary, where I took marketing. It was very generalized, didn't do a ton with it. And then I was a young mom myself. By the age of 21, married and had a baby. And I was working paycheck to paycheck, the 9 to 5, the grind, doing what I was taught when I was younger, work hard and, almost barely scrape by. And by the age of 28, I became a statistic myself. I was a divorcee, young mom on the verge of bankruptcy. I was working as an executive assistant in Toronto at the time. And to be honest, that's what pushed me into entrepreneurship. So in high school to kind of scale back in high school and in elementary school, I remember used to telling people, I wanted to be in cosmetology. I wanted to be in the beauty industry. And, all the teachers and parents and friends would always say, that's really cute, Alana, but beauty is not a career. It's a hobby. So I was always told, what are you really going to do? What are you really going to take on in life? Where's your trajectory? Because beauty is just not a trajectory. So that was instilled with me early on. And so when I ended up in a divorce and broke and had nowhere to turn, that's when I kind of went back to, what? Forget this. This is insanity. I'm paying more in daycare and gas than what my paycheck pays me to stay at this job. I have nothing to lose. And that's when I finally invested in myself and took the leap into entrepreneurship. So I kind of just jumped into it because I was just like, I have nothing to lose. I'm not paying my bills anyways. So you know what? I'm going to go with what speaks to me, which is the beauty industry. And I took my last $1,000 off of a credit card and took a lash course. And I couldn't even afford a bed to do the lashes on. I was going to people's home because I couldn't afford a room to rent. I had a little pink briefcase and I went to people's homes. I went to their work and they would sit on their desk upside down and I'd do their lashes and I was hustling, and that's how I started.
Man. So you were 28 is that right? When you went into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, 27, 28. It was in around there, yeah.
And so you had a 7-year-old at that point. I think you said 21?
Yeah.
One kid?
One, yeah.
Yeah. I'm always so curious about these stories. When we watch these movies, right? And that's an underdog story, right? So if somebody made a movie about your life, I imagine it would be a successful movie. We love the redemption stories. We love the underdog stories. But we don't often wish it upon other people. Like, I wish you didn't go through that. Maybe you've heard that before. It certainly wouldn't be shocking if you had heard that before. That's too bad. That's a tragedy, et cetera, et cetera. But then look at where you are. And I bring that up because I love to read. I love biographies. I love personal development. Many of those books behind me are very similar stories of some of the most successful people that I know having challenging upbringings. Actually, one of the questions my favorite one that we ask all the guests is hardships that they've been through. And the reason we ask that question is because I'm a big believer in you only find growth in those uncomfortable situations. I think there's two versions of it. One is just out of necessity. Like when you're in survival mode, you just do to survive. I think biologically we're wired to do that. But then we can also choose to go into hard places like learning a new language, going back to school, going to the gym, having hard conversations, etc. But I'm curious if you would have written it any different if you could start all over again.
No, No, I got to a place where now I'm even taking the next step and I'm able to give back. So I wouldn't have gotten here and I wouldn't have maybe cared as much about helping change others' lives and help them accumulate their own wealth, whatever that looks like for them, if I didn't have that hardship. So a lot of my students have the same story as me. And when I was just selling a course at the time, I felt like there's so much more that I can do because I understand you're using your last $1,000 and you're trying to supplement your income with this course, or to, get a sense of pride in your life because you're just being, taken advantage of at your 9 to 5 and overworking, underpaid. And so I probably wouldn't have the same drive now to help women to build a successful business had I have just been spoon-fed it.
Such an interesting dichotomy. It really is. I'm 37, so I grew up with boomers for parents. And as far as I'm aware, they're still the wealthiest generation we've ever seen. And prior to their generation was the war generation, right? My parents' parents went through the war. And so they knew poverty and its extremes, and they knew survival and necessity at its extremes, like literal war, right? It doesn't get much worse than that.
No.
So their objective was to work really, really hard. Whether they liked it or not, they just did out of duty and necessity and whatever reasons they had to give the boomers a better lifestyle. And then many of the boomers took that same grouping of values and character traits and did the same thing and created a ton of wealth for people of my age, millennials, whatever it starts at 43 down to 33 or 30 or something like that, 28. And many of them, if you ask them, we wanted to give our kids things that we didn't have. And there's a big part of this millennial generation that I don't like making so broad statements and painting people with the same brush, but I think you could argue that the millennials were given the most opportunities up to that generation. I think that's a fair statement to say. I think there was more wealth going around, and I think we really started to notice what happens when you raise a child in an environment of abundance and having their needs taken care of from day one and not having to earn it. We've all heard of that story, the spoiled boy, girl, doesn't matter, that grew up without values and struggled in a big way, lost no purpose. So it's so interesting that your story was flipped in a way. So many generations spent, we have to get more to provide more opportunity for the kids, more opportunity, more opportunity. And maybe we went too far and forgot some of those really solid values and character traits and ways of living that those past generations have, that we went too far and we gave the opportunity, but we didn't give the character traits. And now it seems like hopefully we're coming back to center. We tend to swing from one end of the pendulum to the other. But I love your story. I imagine it was very difficult. I was not living on my own as a high school student at 16. So I can only imagine how challenging that was. But it is a beautiful story. And I really appreciate you sharing it. But it shows the resilience of a human being and shows what we're capable of when we set our mind to it. Whether you did that out of necessity or not, eventually you got past survival mode and necessity. Yeah. And now you are where you are, which just goes to show that necessity isn't the only driver. I imagine impact and you just
to touch on kind of you saying the boomers, how hard they worked, and we instilled that. And even for me to be in survival mode, I learned you have to work really hard. You have to hustle in order to succeed. But I'm actually learning to scale it back, just like you had touched on, the importance of, yes, it was instilled in me to work very hard. And yes, I got to this place because I worked hard. But then that's where I started to challenge society's expectations of what success looks like. So I was traveling the world. I saw nothing when I was traveling.
You saw nothing? Is that what you're saying?
Nothing. I was working the whole time. I was exhausted. I was overworked. Yes. Okay. To some people, they'd say you're successful because I had a couple dollars in the bank. However, I didn't feel successful. I felt completely exhausted. So that's where we have taken the Diamond Society and actually teaching women, entrepreneurs, not just to overwork to get the dollars. That's not life. That's not wealth. That's not, I don't want to do what the boomers did and, never be able to see my kids and to put all my time and effort into my company and miss out on all the other things that life has to offer. I want a life of abundance. So that's where we're learning, and with all the resources that we have now, to automate not the front end of our companies, because then we lose that relationship, but the back ends of our companies. Yeah. And so that we create more time in our day. And entrepreneurs are wearing so many hats now, and there's so many resources that some people don't even know are available that take some of that off your plate. So you know what? Society is lying to us. We don't have to hustle. We don't have to exhaust ourselves to be successful. We can do quite the opposite. We can learn how to have different resources working for us to free up our time. I'm done at 4:30 every day. I hang out with my kids. I don't ever work on the weekends. And to me, learning that, yes, my childhood taught me, the boomers taught me hustle, 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 but then I'm not actually living. And that is where I've started to actually challenge society and say, okay, yes, we do need to make money to succeed. However, I don't have to give up my whole life in order to do that. And that's what we want to teach.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing. There's a couple of wonderful books out there on this. I've had some great mentors in my life as well. They talk about leverage for an entrepreneur. You can leverage money, you can leverage people, you can leverage systems. And for every unit of effort you put in, when you compound it by leverage, you get way more out of it. Oh, yeah. And therefore you can build much more wealth if that's what you want, or you can trade that for time back for yourself.
Or both.
Which is a beautiful thing. To just slave away all day at your work and then be burnt out by the time 50 hits. Yeah.
No, I have a 2 and 3-year-old at home. So I started all over again. I met my soulmate by the age of 33. So in the last few years, we have a 3 and 4-year-olds, got remarried. And let me tell you, I was not willing. My poor daughter, I hustled so hard. She didn't have a mom. I was traveling the world. I didn't see anything. That's not how I wanted to live. So we have kind of taken the next step in entrepreneurship, which is to learn those systems, the automations, the processes that we can rinse and repeat so that we're not exhausted. That's not the end all be all. That doesn't, I used to wear it with like a badge of honor and, the hat. I wear all the hats and I don't ever stop working. And, I'm doing all these things and I look so damn cool on Instagram. But let me tell you, it was not a cool feeling at all. I was so tired when I wore that overworked, exhaustion as my badge of honor. And that's not what I want to teach my kids moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great lesson. You can have those things. People do it. It is out there. Mentorship, learning, cracking open these new skill sets can get you there. But for the layman, as I imagine I am about as layman as it comes when it comes to your industry, so the audience has a better understanding. If you could teach me, you could probably teach anybody out there. Walk me through what I do at the Cosmopolitan Academy and how, what is it called?
And the Diamond Society,
how that works in there. So if I'm interested in what you're doing, what happens to me there? What happens to me at Cosmopolitan Academy? Why do I come there?
So we have broken it down into a few easy steps just to simplify the process, to not overcomplicate. Ultimately, women are coming to Cosmopolitan Academy because they want to learn a new trade, whether to add to the services at their own salon that they already have. They're looking to now scale to a higher ticket item to offer to their clients, or they're looking to get into the industry as a whole. So we break it down. We make it very easy. The first thing that we do is set you up with the training coordinator to find out what your next step is as far as certification. Does it make most sense to you to save a little bit of money and do online? Do you need the help in order to succeed and do hybrid? Or are you brand new and you should definitely be in a class with an instructor so that you learn that expert technique without, kind of failing to even learn the technique. So we kind of work with you to decide what course of action for the actual certification is best suited for you and your experience and how seasoned you are or unseasoned as an entrepreneur. And those both come collectively into one. After certification, then if you're having a hard time with lead generation, closing those leads, if you're not, awesome, you're good. You don't need us past that. But if you're having a hard time with getting clients in the door, so yes, now I can put the lashes on somebody, but how do I get people into my salon? Two totally different things. And so that's when we would take those women who maybe don't have the business acumen. I was there. That was me. Couldn't afford Harvard. Are you kidding me? I didn't know how to build a business. And so to give that business GPS to those women who maybe don't have the business acumen, that's where we would then recommend you enroll in the Diamond Society and work from our proven 7-figure blueprint in order to scale your own, because trial and error is so costly. It is so expensive. Mm-hmm. And, I was very lucky. I stumbled upon the trial and error but to streamline, that's kind of invaluable for sure.
There's no question about it. I mean, it's what we do in our business. It's either going to cost you likely all three, but at least one of these: time, money, and stress. And rather than, for me, at this point in our business, very lucky to be in the position that we are, but stress is the thing that I try to reduce more. I will pay heavily to reduce stress rather than just try to squeeze out every last dollar, because even at the end of the day, even if I get more time, but I'm stressed, emotionally out of whack, and I can't enjoy it, health is foundational to me. So that's where a lot of my resources go to, or when we hire staff or take on more software, whatever it may be, it's really to make my brain space a little bit more enjoyable up there.
The only investment that will buy you time in life.
Right.
The only investment.
So, okay. So I go through the certification. I now have these new skill sets, whether I have my own salon or I'm brand new. Either way, I now have new valuable skill sets that I can charge out there in the world, provide a service to somebody. Great. That's all I have. So I go to the Diamond Society, and I imagine there's some monthly fee, something like that. I imagine there's training involved there. Mm-hmm. And you provide me with essentially some form of marketing, actually drive leads to the business. How does this work? What kind of experience can we expect?
So you would actually learn yourself which on autopilot as well, which is really, really nice. So lead generation to close sales. And then the bonus of automating your business so that you're not exhausting yourself trying to market sales and do the service and answer the phones. So we kind of teach that back end to alleviate some of the stress so that you can scale without burning yourself out. That is most important to us.
So you teach it. So I'll be walking away with those skills to learn how to drive my own leads, learn how to close sales, provide more value, and then have back-end automation as well.
Yes.
Awesome. And how did you come across all that? Was that really just the trial and error road?
Trial and error.
Amazing mentors?
A lot of coaching. Okay. I got to a point in my company where I could afford a coach. And that's where I want to make Diamond Society affordable so that it can get into the hands of the people who really need it. Because it took me a lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of effort. I missed out on my first daughter's, childhood, her young childhood. And so I ended up at a point where I could invest back into myself and learning, some more business acumen for people who have done it themselves, best way to learn. So I started investing in mentorship. And that's when I realized, yes, I got here awesome, but I wasn't doing it right. And that's where I learned from other people how to automate, how to alleviate some stress, take some things off my plate. And now, I kind of reverse engineered what I did to get to where I am, put it on paper, put it in, and, we practice what we preach. So everything that we're teaching in the courses, we're physically doing and we've done to hit the 7 figures.
Awesome. Before we move on, what is your take? I mean, I think I already have the answer, but I want to hear it from you. What is your take on mentorship? You said eventually you got to the point where you can invest back into your business. Do you think that should be a natural evolution for most entrepreneurs, or did it not work out for you? What's your take on being coached?
So for me, I would say if you don't know what you don't know. And so I can only get so far in my own brain because I have one way of thinking. It's how we're wired. So if I want to tap into other ways, if I want to be open to learning, if I want to be open to the next step, I'm going to have to learn from somebody who does it differently than me, because there's going to be some things that I couldn't even think of in my own mind because I'm not wired the same as somebody else. So for me, mentorship is it's a natural evolution. And without it, you're gonna hit that plateau. And that's the reason why we get into entrepreneurship, is to break those glass ceilings that we have at the job. We don't want to stay just over broke. Not what I'm interested in. And mentorship gets us to that next level because people think differently, because people have different systems and processes that you can take what works and, streamline it into your own. So it's really silly not to have a mentor that's doing more than you. Also, our friend group, we can only learn so much from those who are doing the same as us. We have to leverage somebody who's doing more because they've already put in that time, that effort. They're doing different things, and it's invaluable to learn from that. Why would I not want to tap into that?
Awesome. Love it. Great advice. Let's talk about you for a moment, although you've already given us some story about your life. Very grateful for that. It's a very interesting story. Very interesting, very inspiring. But let's do some rapid fire. 5 things that put a smile on your face. What makes you smile, Alana?
Well, my family, of course.
Of course.
Dirt biking. I love to dirt bike.
Okay. Love it.
Wakeboarding in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, working with my team, they put a smile on my face. They're my family. We call each other our work wives. And, just something as simple as when the sun comes out in the day. I'm grateful for that. I love the sun, love the heat. It's really just that simple. Yeah.
Fan of winter at all? Are you like,
no,
flat out. That was not a hard answer. No.
Nope. I don't know. I'm blessed to be born in Canada. That's for sure. We see what's going on around the world. But let me tell you, Ontario has some wicked winters, and I am not a fan. Yeah.
Simcoe. We get hit pretty hard. Okay. So you gave us a piece of your life. So if that's the answer to this question, then that's fine as well. If there's something else in there, if we can dig a little deeper into something else, that'd be great too. So I was alluding to earlier about hardships. I have all my rules for life tattooed on my arm because I take life very seriously so that I can enjoy the F out of it. On this show, I'll say enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah.
But one of them is do hard things. And I don't think hard has this feeling, right? It feels uncomfortable. If we were designed to do hard things all the time, we would just move into it very easily. But from my experience and the books and mentors that I follow, it seems like our body is designed for energy conservation. That's why we love the couch. That's why we love to Netflix and chill, whatever you want to call it. That's why spas feel so good, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think we grow very much in those positions. I think we do have to kind of stretch ourselves. I mean, physically, if you talk about your body, muscle needs to be pushed beyond where it is to grow. It needs to actually be broken down, taken to a place where it hasn't been before to actually grow. Just physiologically, it won't get there otherwise. And I would argue that your brain is probably the same way. Your emotions are probably the same way. So I make sure that it's a point in my life to be, has it been a couple of months and I haven't read a book yet, or I'm living the same day on repeat? I maybe haven't pushed myself. I may be getting complacent. There it is to remind me. But this podcast also does a phenomenal job of that. As I said, nearly 500 episodes asking this question to entrepreneurs like yourself. And I almost always get the same answer, which just helps me reinforce that point. Like you guys teach me continually on repetition these valuable lessons. But basically, we love to ask the guests on the show any trials, tribulations, hardships that you've been through that probably getting sucked in the moment, as hard as that symptom, it doesn't feel good. But when you look back in hindsight, you wouldn't remove that ingredient from the recipe that has become you because it's led you to living the life you enjoy today. Anything outside of that childhood story? Or is that
Yeah, so to touch on the fear, fear is definitely the enemy of progression. So at first, I used to, if I felt fear, I was told as a child, as an adult, that if you feel fear, that's your instincts and you should back off. So that's where I learned that, becoming content and, honoring that fear and backing off was probably one of the hardest things to overcome, to learn that fear is actually my friend. That's when it's showing me to jump in, to learn more, to get more out of the lesson that I need to learn to take the next step. So for me, the hardest thing to overcome was learning to lean into the fear, learn more. Maybe I wasn't ready to take the next step, but if I was being pulled to learn more, that means there was an opportunity for me. And if I would back off, I would miss that opportunity. And that was one of the hardest things for me to learn, because it's instilled in us. Fear is, there to protect us, which it is, but that might just mean
to a degree, right?
To a degree.
Right.
And they don't teach that part. We're not taught
missed
that.
a major ingredient.
Exactly. So that was probably one of the hardest things for me to overcome, was to learn that fear is there to guide us, but that's not my ticket to stop. And when I'm feeling content, when I'm feeling like I'm doing enough, that's actually when I need a mentor. That's when I need somebody to push me further.
Such an interesting concept. Right there, right below, do hard things as fear is your green light. That's how important.
That's so funny. And right? I don't know anything for anybody watching. I did not even know you had that tattoo.
Yeah, we've never met before.
Yeah.
But so many entrepreneurs, it's like, I don't know. I could get all philosophical and go down on this deep rabbit hole. I won't right now, but I love these mental exercises. Life seems so complicated in so many different stages of our life, especially once we hit that teenagehood is complicated, but I don't know. It seemed more simple for me at that time. I was very superficial. I only need a few things: girls, money, sports, whatever, video games. And then you become this young adult and you're like, I don't know anything. And life seems so complicated, a million different roads to take. But it really does seem like the older I get, the more I talk to individuals like yourself, the more books, it seems like all of that complication narrows down to a handful of things. And a lot of our entrepreneurs are saying the exact same thing. Like moving into fear, moving into discomfort, stretching yourself, doing what's right rather than what's pleasurable or expedient in the moment, so that you can feel good at the end of the day. Don't overwork. Coming from entrepreneurs who know what it's like to overwork, and some of them have made quite successful lifestyles from it, and they're saying don't overwork. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. You don't want to be rich and ill, essentially. Yeah. You don't want to be rich and have no relationships.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is, what was the trigger that made you decide I need to lean into fear? And then how did you do it? How did you actually lean into your fear? Like, how do you look over the cliff, get scared shitless, and still jump?
Well, that's a good question. So for me, it was a mentor who kind of opened up my eyes to me backing off. They could see things that I could not see in myself. So it was a mentor who kind of saw this cycle of mine and could see very quickly where I was stuck. And if I wanted to go to the next level, spreading across Canada and the US, going global, I needed to stop letting off the gas anytime that I got scared. And so they helped me to not just see this in myself, but then to overcome that. And that's when I learned about automating and taking things off of my plate. And it proved to be one of the biggest assets that I would probably ever learn, to get my life back while still pushing through. And yeah, I've done a ton of things that I was afraid of, and I failed hard. Cosmopolitan and the Diamond Society are definitely not the only two companies that I've started. But each one that I learned, something new that I'm able to bring back to the table and then scale upon in the successful ventures that I do have. So, just because I've learned that you should lean into fear doesn't mean it always works out how I think it's supposed to, how I want it to, but it's definitely always worked out in my favor to some capacity, and you have to trust that. And once you learn that even a failure to what society would suggest is a failure, you learn is actually to your greatest benefit, the fear becomes a lot less, because you're coming out of it with something that you can scale, that you can use and implement. So it just really takes the fear out of it. That old fear that I used to fear or feel compared to what I feel now when my fear kind of kicks in. To be honest, now when I get really scared, I pop the champagne. I'm like, holy shit, I'm about to take the next step. This is so exciting. And people are like, doesn't this scare the crap out of you? F yeah, it does. And that's why I'm freaking excited, because I know my life's about to go to the next level, because I'm feeling this fear. So I know if I push through, I'm coming out bigger. 100%. So now it kind of goes from fear to excitement.
Well, they say that the same chemical is released in the body from fear and excitement. So if that is true, if I'm going to believe that is true, then it really just comes down to my relationship with fear, and I can change my relationship with anything. And that's what you just said. What once stopped you, now you're moving through life, maybe not feeling fear every day. And I don't know, a week goes by, a month goes by, a quarter goes by, and you get hit with that fear and you're like, oh, time to level up. What a way to look at life now. Because when I look at, we have a fairly large team. We do a lot of hiring. And when I look at the amount of people who stop after 4 months or 8 months, if they get to a year, they tend to hang in. But that first month to 8 months, it's tough. I mean, they're all independent contractors, right? So we teach them how to build a business, and then they go out and do that. But, building a business isn't for everybody. And when I look at the main contributors to stopping them, if you peel back the layers enough, I mean, it can start at rejection. It could, it could be emotions. It could be this, it could be insecurity. But really, if you keep going down, it ends up being some type of fear. So for me,
fear of starting small. We see it all the time. People are like, they're looking at somebody who's already taken 50 steps in business, and they're like, well, they're doing that. How can I start here? Well, guess what? We all started with no steps in business in order to get to 50 steps ahead. So ultimately, you can't compare your first step to somebody's 50th step. So the fear of starting small, scrap it. It's not going to serve you. If you want to get to those 50 steps, you got to start in the same position as we all started, which is at 0. And is it embarrassing to start small? No, it's embarrassing not to start.
Boom. Takes a lot of courage to start. I have a lot of respect for people who just, I'm going to do it because this is what I want to do. No matter what anybody else says, it's my life. I have agency over it, and I'm going to take control of it and do it.
Yes.
That is nothing but respect for that. Well said. What a conversation. I'm enjoying this. Couple things for you before we head off here. So you're on stage. I like painting this picture a little bit. You're on stage. You got, I don't know, 500, 10,000, whatever it is, of potential buyers, clients, your people in the audience, and they give you the mic for 90 seconds. What do you say to those people? What's the 1-2 things that you want people to know that haven't bought from you yet, that are a part of it, that maybe started and stopped? Like, what do you want your ideal demographic to know about Cosmopolitan and the Diamond Society?
That's a loaded question. So I guess there would be 2 parts to that. One would touch on the fear of starting small, the embarrassment of, starting too little. So number one, you got to scrap that. The fear of failure to even jump in. A lot of people come to the table and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to take a course because I don't have the money. We know that's not true, or you wouldn't be calling. The truth is your fear of failing is superseding your confidence in yourself to succeed. So you don't want to put out the investment if you can't guarantee that you're going to come out successful. So that right there, you have to overcome. You have to build the confidence in yourself. You have to be ready to take the investment. And then the second thing is that people in this industry, they look around and they see lash artists, they see PMU artists everywhere. And so they think this industry is too saturated to make money. So even if you teach me how to build a business, Alana, it's too saturated. I can't make money in this industry because everybody's doing it. Well, the truth is there's a lot of people doing it. There is not a lot of people doing it well. It is not oversaturated if you perfect your craft. There is not a lot of people in this industry that is doing the craft to an expert level. There's a lot of people who jump in. There's a lot of people who's marketing online, and then they fall off because they don't put the time and the effort into learning the craft. They do not become specialized. They're very generalized, which generally doesn't go very far. So those who are able to overcome the fear of failure, who are willing to invest in themselves, they need to understand that we will invest in them just as much as they invest in themselves to get to where they want to go. And this market is not oversaturated. It is very undersaturated. There's a lot of people doing it. There's not a lot of people doing it well. So if you're willing to put that time and effort into learning your craft, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, well said. I think you can make that argument for just about anything in life. Finding people that do anything well. If we all did it, we wouldn't even be using that statement. So by its nature, it is rare. It is uncommon. And if you can be kind of uncommon in anything, you probably have skill sets that people will pay a lot of money for, and that will provide a lot of quality to your life.
Yes.
Well said. Last question for you. This is my secret question. I do not put this in the questionnaire because I don't want people scripting the answer. I only talk about, we relate on a couple of things for sure. I think character leaves clues when it comes to business. Certainly, I'm noticing some things that I resonate with, certainly with the way you're speaking. But outside of the business part of that, I only talk about a few things in my life because I'm only interested in a few things. I've really found that when I was in my 20s, I was told by a mentor, learn broadly, test and try everything. And over time, to get good at anything, you'll need to narrow your path. You want to test and try everything to find, if I don't go and search for these things, I may not find what I'm truly interested in. So I really did just follow her guidance, read all different types of books, tried all different types of things, went to different places of the world, and slowly started to narrow my approach to what is very interesting with me. Health stayed foundational through all of that. That's my bread and butter. Philosophy, it's a big one. Psychology, the brain, that human connection, really, like how do we tick? How do you tick? How can I communicate with you better by knowing about me better? Mentorship and entrepreneurship. So those are really like the 5 things, and impact. That's a big one. Those are really the 4 or 5 things that I think of. And it all goes towards really, I learn about these things because it helps me create the impact that I want, which I want a very specific type, and I want it to do some good. So this question is really about impact. When I ask these questions, sometimes people talk about legacy, like posthumously after they've died. I think that's important, but I want to see the ripple effect of my now, right? I won't be around after I'm dead, so I won't know what actually happens. Although I do think it's still important to leave the world better than you found it after you've gone. But we love to ask the guests on the show. This is one of the things I'm most fascinated in, is like, what are we all doing this for? We're on this spinning rock. We're building, we're creating, we're doing all these things. Is it for money? Is it for joy? What's it all for? And I think the impact question reveals quite a bit about humans in general. It's very fascinating. So, Alana, what do you want your impact to be?
Boy, I want to make sure that I'm changing lives in the way that my life was changed. Number one, we do a lot of initiatives for women and children shelters. So we welcome any women who are struggling to find that stability in their own life, and whether it's in Canada, US, doesn't matter. It could be anywhere. If they called, any of the shelters called and said, we have a woman who's interested in building her own business, we take them on complete pro bono, because we want to give women who have children the stability and the resources and the support to create stability in their own lives. So we do that. And then we also, obviously with the Diamond Society, we're looking those who do have, able to invest in themselves. Then, we want to make sure that we're changing their lives. We're giving them the support that they may not have otherwise. We make it affordable so that ultimately, if they can afford a coffee every day, they can afford our mentorship, and to give that to them for the price of, cutting out something that they don't actually need. We're not looking to just help the women who have already scaled and can afford $10,000 mentorships. We're looking to help the everyday women who just need the support. They need somebody to open their doors and say, we are here to help. We are here to support. And so we make it affordable. And then we also have a couple other, we work with a company, Up With Women, it's called. They're out of the US. And
Up With Women?
Up With Women.
Yep.
And so not just the children, women and children shelters, and helping those women, we also do, so it is a poverty-based community that helps women who are in poverty to learn skills and resources to become employable. And so while, we want to teach entrepreneurship, we also add value in at least giving skills so that if they're not interested in this industry, awesome, we can help them with the skills to become employable. So we also work with them as well.
I love it. I think, even though you chose to craft your path uniquely to you and who you are and your values, this is some of the things that results from doing entrepreneurship. I think it would be very difficult for you to do the things you're doing right now as an employee. And that's one of the things that we want to get across to people is like, yeah, entrepreneurship is difficult. There are probably going to be seasons of that journey where you are grinding away, and then you decide how much you want to do. But the level of agency and autonomy and opportunity that you get over your own life while you're here to do it is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And one of the reasons why this show exists is not only to help entrepreneurs get their message out there and increase the quality of their lives of the audience, but hopefully interest people to be like, I've been wanting to do this thing for a decade. And now that I've heard Alana speak and this person and that person, hearing where she came from, similar to me, this person may be saying, that was that inspiration I needed. You never know when you said that one thing to that one person at that one time.
Yeah.
You don't even know who they are, changed a life. It's an incredible
so true thing. And that to me is true success, being able to change even one life. It doesn't have to be massive. It can be massive to one person. And to me, that is the gratification that I now work for. We actually had a woman from a woman and children shelter, and through our academy, she didn't just learn the skill, but she's built a business, and she actually got her daughter back. She had to prove income in order to get her daughter back. And so to her, I'm going to cry just thinking about her story. But to me, that's all I want to do.
Yeah,
that to me is worth every single night that I stayed up, every single sacrifice that I gave in the early stages. Now I'm able to give back to other people and create stability in their lives that I once so badly needed.
Just fills the cup right up, eh? I mean, really, so many people think of business as just bottom line and money. And I get it, because that's often the resource that we use to create these opportunities. But at the end of the day, so many entrepreneurs, it seems very much like you're saying this, is it becomes a way of life. It becomes a purpose. It becomes who you are as maybe an identity, or at least a part of your character. But it becomes your way of impacting the world. And it's a hell of a way to do it. How can people find out about you, Alana? If they want to get involved, what's the best way to connect?
Easiest way is Cosmopolitan.Academy.com.
Beautiful. Any social media that you want to plug on there?
Cosmopolitan.Academy.inc and the Diamondsociety.inc is
Beautiful.
Instagram, Facebook.
Awesome. You have been a pleasure to speak to.
You too, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable. Hope to run into you again at some point. Until then, you enjoy the rest of your day, Alana.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.